So first off, Neville, thank you so much for letting me come talk to you today.
No problem.
My dad tells me that you don't really talk too much about your service.
Oh, I'm always raving on about myself, I thought. But there you go, you see. Old people tend to do that, don't they? Well, to a certain extent.
It's good to talk about, though, because it's history. It's living on.
That's sure, yeah.
When did you join? Did you join the army?
Yes, I was in the army, in the BCOF, which was the British and Commonwealth Occupation Forces in Japan. After the war. During the war, my friends of the age, around about 17 and 18 and that sort of thing, were joining the army, and of course I wanted to be in it. But they introduced what they call manpower, and I was in a protected industry, because the reason being that for every soldier on the field they had to have, I think, 7 people supporting him for ammunition and other things. My particular job in the railways was to make boilers, and they were going to build engines, steam engines, steam locomotives for the Indian railways which were involved in the fighting. So, as it happened, I couldn't get into the army all during the early parts of the war, but as soon as the war ended they started the BCOF forces, and so I joined those and had a very interesting 3 years there.
Had you been outside of Australia before you went to Japan?
No, I haven't been outside of Australia at all, and I haven't been since then. So it was my only experience outside this part of the world.
So when you landed in Japan,
yes,
what did you think? Was it busy? Was it different?
Oh, what did I do there?
Yeah.
Well, as it happened, I was picked to join the what they call the signal branch, and my job there was to do the coding and encoding and decoding of messages. And I was rated as into that part of the servers, and that was just by a little bit of luck. I've always been well done with the engineering side of things. And the major of the cipher section wanted somebody who could look after the cipher machines, and he picked me because my record in the training showed, I had a high grading in that, and he asked me would I join that cipher section. So I decided to do that, and of course it turned out to be one of the most interesting parts of my life.
Yeah.
And our job there was to code and decode messages coming through from various parts of the army, you see, and various people in the army, like the colonels and the captains and so on, to the troops, and for troop movement and that type of thing. So that was my job there, and it was the most interesting job. We had only a very small section of about 12 men at the time, and it was one of the best parts of my working life, I think, and that was my army experience. I think if I'd have gone on a bit further, it might have been better for me. But by the time I had 3 years, being young and reckless, I want to get out of this. I'm going to go and do something else. That was how it happened there.
So you spent 3 years in Japan.
Yes.
Did you get to see any of Japan, or was it just on base? Or
how do you mean?
Did you get to see some of the towns, meet some of the local people?
Oh, in Japan itself?
Yeah.
you didn't have much fraternising, they called it, with the local people at all. But we used to get round and you get to meet some of them, you know. The thing was that they were told by their emperor and who they obeyed as a god that to be like reasonable but don't fraternise, the word they used, with the army. They were not allowed to do that, you see. So you had to be careful that you didn't do that, you know, too much intermingling or going to places. So it was very interesting though. I did go with one mate of mine on the army to a normal house, and they had served up a normal meal for us, and they have the rice, and I had one bowl of it and I had plenty, and the kids, only young boys, they were into it. They get through 3 bowls. The lifestyle's different, and of course they slept on straw mats. And the whole floor was covered in straw mats, so they took their shoes off, and before they got into the door of any living quarters. And the next door neighbour was just like that. There was just a partition wall separating one family from the other. It was a very different lifestyle to what they live today, where they've been, what would you call it, they've been Americanised greatly, you know.
Yeah.
So that was my lifestyle in the army, and it was very, very interesting.
Right. So did you get to work with the Americans much in Japan?
How do you mean there?
Because you're obviously Australian and you were in the Australian Army. Did you work with the Americans at all in Japan?
With the Americans?
Yeah.
No, not directly, but we did have messages and that sort of thing coming through from the American sector. They were involved in different areas, you know. There, we didn't have much communication between the Americans and ourselves. I suppose that was only natural. There was also the English contingents there, and in our signals branch we had a couple of Englishmen there. And the Americans, there was a group of us at one stage, myself, Australian, an Englishman and an American, had formed a little group of friendship, you know. So that was very interesting. And it's just off time we'd get together and visit various places like Resham and so on. But the American was inclined to think everything belonged to America. And we're talking about gum trees at one stage, and he said, "Oh yeah, stateside. They all come from America," he reckoned. Yes. The one thing about that type of life, you do meet various people and get a broader outlook on the world from it, I think, don't you?
Absolutely. Did you see Hiroshima?
Hiroshima. Yes, it was most interesting. There was a section that was just above where they dropped the bomb. It was just flattened, shockingly flattened, and it must have been a horrible experience. But it just covered an area, from memory, of 3 miles where it had flattened it. But virtually everything. It just pushed everything over. Strangely enough, not far from the centre, there was a church, and it had just blown the roof off, but the walls were still standing, and there was nothing inside. It was a Catholic church, I think, which was in Japan at the time, in that vicinity, and this was very close to the blast, so it was strange how it worked, you know. The brewery, the Japanese brewery, was just on the edge of the destruction, and the word went round that the Americans had dropped it so as to make sure that the brewery was left intact after the blast.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Yes, a very interesting time.
So, how did the other Australians feel about the Japanese? You know, we've just had a war against them.
Oh, there was a definite within the troops that I met, there was definite put down the Japanese type of thing, you know. But some of the lads were a little bit too much to put them underfoot, I think. I didn't find that necessary. They did not worry you, and they didn't really not a problem. The advantage of being in the occupation force there was that you didn't have to, because they were so well trained under their emperor. You didn't have to worry about being, with being in firing line and that type of thing. It's certainly a different attitude. But, yes, there was a overbearing attitude with some of our blokes. So I know with a couple of friends, I said, "Oh, don't worry about them. You know, they'll do what you want to do." But they'd argue the toss and act the boss sort of thing to them. But there were other places. I just can't remember. I had a look at that too, but that was different. The other one where they dropped the second bomb.
Nagasaki. Was that the second one was?
Yes, that's right, yes. But that didn't seem to do as much damage, or was different. I only drove through there at one stage. We had one area between Hiroshima and Kure, where I was based. It was about 20-mile drive, I think. And in between was one area where your jeep, your vehicle, was not allowed to stop because the whole area were prostitutes, Japanese prostitutes, and so you weren't allowed to stop in that area. The theory there was that, and I have read, that there's a section at the time, there's a section of Japanese people who were considered a class, perhaps like you might say the British, the real British people, you know, classy. And those people were protected very carefully by the Japanese people, and to do that they would set up like these areas of brothels, which would be with the ordinary, working class Japanese women. It was rather crude at the time, I thought, but that's the way it was, and it had been a war, a bad war. Bad war for everybody, but it turned out okay in the long term, but it's been a long term, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Or it was long term.
Okay, so Japan was an interesting time in your life then?
I would say one of the most interesting times. I've always enjoyed my boiler making work, which I was trained in, and that type of engineering has always been part of it, you know. I've always liked that very much, you know. So I was one of the lucky ones that when I got up every morning to go to work, I was looking forward to it. And I think that's very nice to be like that.
It is, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Mm.
So what did you do when you left the army?
When
you left the army and you came back to Australia?
I took up I went back into the engineering trade, and I worked for 2 or 3 different companies from time to time. And as it happened, of course, after the war, there was a lot of rebuilding going on, and work was very easy to get. So as a young bloke, I used to change around. Every couple of months I'd leave that job and get another one somewhere else, wherever I was. So I came over here to WA somewhere in the 1950. And as it happened, I started with a friend of mine. We were doing boat building there, something right out that I'd been interested in it in the army, and I was making a boat while I was on a little sailing boat, when I say a 15-foot sailing boat, in my spare time in the army. And I had finished that, just about finished it when I left, and just sold it off to one of the other blokes, of course. But when we got to Albany, we decided to take up a bit of boat building, and that was quite interesting too, in Albany. And of course there I met my wife, and we got married down there in 1952, I think it was. Albany's a nice place.
Yes, it is. Gorgeous.
And it's good, very nice down there now too.
Yeah.
Yes, my life's been simple, but productive for me,
Yeah.
And I've enjoyed it no end. After I retired, I took up model making and model engineering, making of steam engines and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Some of them were in there, the models I made, And that kept me in the workshop in the back of the yard. And my wife always knew where I was. And she said, "You're never in here to talk to me, eh?" Yeah.
If you can look back on your life and said you've had a good life, that's pretty good.
If I had a chance to go back.
No, you said that you had a good life. You enjoyed life.
I'd enjoyed it, yeah. And I said, if I had the chance, I said yes, I'd double up on it. I'd do it again, just the same as it was. Yeah. That's
great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking with me. Thank you.
That's very good of you to get down here to record the interview and so on.
This podcast was edited, published and produced by the RSLWA. Head to www.rslwa.org.au for other content. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook.